On today's show, come election day, we're going to discover just how much an appetite there is in our country for fascism. Trump is no longer sugarcoating it. The man who kept a copy of Hitler's speeches by his bed is going all in on merging the military, extrajudicial thugs, and the richest 1%. Now, there's always been a strain of fascism running through North America straight down to South America. This is nothing new to this hemisphere, and it's nothing new to the Republican Party, which until Pearl Harbor was made up primarily of isolationists who saw Stalin as the bigger threat than Hitler and Mussolini. More on all that later on this morning, and these are just some of the stories we'll be talking about. General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under Donald Trump, tells Bob Woodward he now realizes that Donald Trump is a fascist to the core. The Washington Post reports that as Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and JD Vance continue to spread lies about FEMA stealing property from hurricane victims and abandoning districts that went for Trump in 2020, federal rescue workers have been ordered to evacuate Rutherford County, North Carolina, after warnings of armed militia attacks. With the election just 20 days away, the national polling averages show the race tightening a little, with Harris's lead shrinking in the national polling averages. She's now leading Trump by only 2 percentage points. The Guardian uncovers disturbing reports about Doug Hamlin, the brand new head of the National Rifle Association, who pled no contest to animal cruelty back in 1980 after he was caught chopping the paws off a live cat and then setting it on fire. That's the new head of the NRA. He fits the profile of a serial killer. I'll hold off on that story till the very end. Fighting in the Middle East spreads to northern Lebanon for the first time since war broke out between Israel and Hezbollah on October 7th of 2023. This is the mop-up for October 15th, 2024. I'm David Feldman. Please like this episode so I remain in your feed. And the best way to help this show is by sharing it via email, text, or social media. Join the tens of idiots, yes, the tens of idiots, who go to shopdavidfeldman.com and purchase garbage they don't need, like this worst-case scenario mug, showing that all Kamala Harris needs to do is win the blue wall, and it gets her to 270. Besides being a terrific souvenir of the 2024 election, it's also a terrific way to calm yourself down, especially if you pour a little Jameson's in your coffee. And don't forget to check out my new Halloween collection over at shopdavidfeldman.com, like this official souvenir mug from the 2029 presidential inauguration featuring Melania and Donald Trump. Don't they look great? Donald Trump held a rally over the weekend in Coachella, California, because instead of chasing votes, he's chasing crowds. There's no way he's winning California, but he hates playing to empty rooms, and he was told, you'll draw a crowd in Coachella. It was a disaster. No bathrooms, no parking. His supporters wandered for hours trying to find the exits, but at least they got to see the big Hollywood stars who came out to support Donald Trump.
Dennis Quaid is here with his brother Randy Quaid. Two very good guys.
Yeah, two very good guys, Dennis Quaid and his brother Randy Quaid. Randy Quaid, the epitome of mental health. Randy actually sought asylum in Canada, escaping what he considered political persecution here in America back in 2010. So you'd think he'd be a little sympathetic to migrants. Anyway, several arrests for fraud and getting his American passport revoked. Several of those incidents later, Randy Quaid became a full-throated Trump supporter, and now his brother, Dennis is all in on Trump as well. Well, Donald Trump talks about genes. You know, it's in the genes. Or you can go see a psychiatrist. You can support Donald Trump, or you can get psychiatric help. And then Donald Trump talked about how environmentalists are destroying America. Here he is, because he's an idiot, confusing the home of the Delta smelt. He says the Delta smelt lives in Iowa, but it's actually from California's Central Valley.
Iowa land. It's the finest land in the country, but they have no water. Artificially, they reroute it because they want to save, there's a fish, Delta smelt. Anyone ever hear of it? And it's not just to this area. By the way, the Delta smelt is doing extremely badly, especially since it has no water. You know, they think they have a fish, and their way of saving the fish is not to give it water. Somehow that doesn't work. But you have a little Delta smelt, but you have other areas, so it's not like to this area.
He's talking about the Delta smelt in Iowa. It's from California. Anyway, I like to hear him say the Delta smelt. A little Delta smelt. It sounds like what he says to people on Trump Force One after he's farting up a storm.
You have a little Delta smelt.
It's a little Delta smelt. It's not me. It's a little Delta smelt. He who smelt dealt it. I didn't do it. He doesn't take credit for anything. And then he addressed California's drought, which is actually not so bad this year. In fact, the biggest problem California faced in 2024 was the snowpack melting early and causing massive flooding. Well, less than a week after massive flooding in Florida and North Carolina and South Carolina, here's the idiot Donald Trump assuring the people of California how great things are going to be for them when he's president.
What I said, California, you're going to have so much water, you're not going to know what the hell to do with it. They're going to call me. Remember about winning, when I used to do this about winning? They're going to call me in the White House, and they're going to say, sir, please, we have too much water. We're flooding. Please, sir, please, we have too much water. Right now, you don't have any water. Artificial. It's artificial. Sir, please, can we see you? We have far too much water.
He's stupid and insane. You're going to have so much water when I'm president, it's going to make North Carolina after Hurricane Helene look like the Sahara Desert. That's what he's basically saying. You'll be clinging to the top of your homes waiting for helicopter rescues. You're going to have so much water. The man is stupid and dangerous. It should not be this close. November 5th is now only 20 days away with 5 million votes already cast. And early voting has already begun in 37 states. Politico this morning reports that it got its hands on a leaked memo put out by the Senate Leadership Fund, the top fundraising group that gets Republicans elected to the Senate. It's run by Senate Republicans. And a new private poll conducted for the Senate Leadership Fund shows Texas Senator Ted Cruz only beating his Democratic challenger, Congressman Colin Allred, by 1 point. Cruz and Allred have their first and only debate tonight. Allred, a former football player turned civil rights attorney turned U.S. congressman, is considered to be Ted Cruz's most formidable foe ever and has been endorsed by Liz Cheney. Politico also reports this morning that that same leaked memo shows internal polling saying Nebraska Republican Senator Deb Fischer is, quote, a serious trouble spot in her race against independent union activist Dan Osborne, who so far has given no indication that he needs help from or will caucus with the Democratic Party after he wins. There are 7 toss-up seats that Democrats must win in order to keep control of the Senate. Miraculously, they are strong in all 6 except for Montana, where Democrat John Tester is not doing well in the polls. If Tester loses, then the Democrats will lose control of the Senate, unless Colin Allred defeats Ted Cruz in Texas, or Dan Osborne, the independent, beats Deb Fischer in Nebraska and agrees to either caucus with the Democrats or at least votes for Chuck Schumer for majority leader. There's a possibility Powell in Florida might beat Rick Scott, but we don't know. Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri is also running for re-election. Here he is back in July speaking before the National Conservatism Conference.
Some will say now that I am calling America a Christian nation. And so I am. And some will say that I am advocating Christian nationalism, and so I do.
The New Republic reports the St. Louis Post-Dispatch's editorial board now calls Josh Hawley, quote, the worst sitting senator in America right now. So it doesn't sound like he's getting his home paper's endorsement. By the way, I altered Josh Hawley's face. The New Republic says of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch's decision, the editorial pointed out that Hawley was initially the only senator to challenge the 2020 presidential election results and raised his fist in solidarity with the mob on January 6, only to run away with his fellow members of Congress when that mob breached the Capitol building. According to the New Republic, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch's editorial board has endorsed Lucas Kuntz, a 39-year-old Yale-educated Marine who served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Josh Hawley never served in the military, but has written a book about the importance of masculinity, and he ran like a coward when the January 6ers stormed the Capitol. Bob Woodward's new book, War, is released today, and according to brand new excerpts, the retired chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under Donald Trump, General Mark Milley, now calls Donald Trump, quote, a fascist to the core. In the book, General Mark Milley tells Bob Woodward that Trump is, quote, now the most dangerous person to this country, unquote. Milley said that immediately after January 6th, he had concerns about Trump, but, quote, now I realize he's a total fascist. Milley is now retired, but said if Trump is elected, Milley says he has no doubt that he will be ordered to put his uniform back on to be court-martialed and probably jailed. Here is Donald Trump in Prescott, Arizona over the weekend telling supporters he can solve the border crisis without Congress. Here he is selling fascism, authoritarianism, convincing his MAGA morons that a strong man can cut through all the bureaucratic red tape.
I'm fine with the bill, but you don't need a bill. All you have to do is you need a president. You know, my father used to tell me, these guys that need letters, they'll come into my office, son, and they'll say, sir, thank you for the job. And, sir, could I have a letter saying that you've promoted me? Those guys never worked out because they need a letter. It was the ones that walked in and said, I'm the boss now, you're going to listen to me. They didn't need a letter. He always would say, anytime they wanted a letter of authorization, they never worked out.
Yeah, Donald Trump ruled the Trump Organization with an iron fist and declared bankruptcy 6-7 times and lost his father's entire fortune because he ruled with an iron fist. Here is Donald Trump over the weekend, sounding more and more like the fascist he is, where he talks about the leftists who are going to make November 5th violent and what he thinks should be done about it.
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
That's Donald Trump. And full disclosure, I altered his face. I have to be honest and tell you that's not what he really looks like. The Woodward book reveals that immediately after Joe Biden got sworn in, Mark Milley demanded a meeting with Attorney General Merrick Garland to warn him of the growing dangers of the far-right militia movements in our country, and they will come to the aid of Donald Trump. A brand new CBS YouGov poll of likely voters shows that 65% of hurricane relief funds 65% of voters believe hurricane relief funds are not going to people impacted by the storm. 65% of Trump voters. Let me say that again. A new CBS YouGov poll of likely Trump voters shows that 65% of them believe hurricane relief funds are not going to people impacted by the storm. In other words, they believe the lie told by Donald Trump and Elon Musk that FEMA funding earmarked for disaster relief is going to the migrants. The poll also shows that 83% of Trump voters believe FEMA funding set aside for hurricane relief is going to people who are in this country illegally. This despite it being explained over and over that FEMA is congressionally mandated to provide financial assistance to any migrant released by Homeland Security into our country. It's been explained. There are two pots, one for disaster relief and one for the migrants. The pot for the migrants is tiny, and that money must be spent on migrants by law. But Trump and now Speaker Mike Johnson are accusing FEMA of wasting money on migrants. This is a lie. Now, the truth is Trump violated this law in 2019 and took money from the disaster relief pot of FEMA and turned it over to ICE to build detention centers and buildings for immigration officials. It is Trump who took the FEMA money earmarked for disaster and turned it over to the migrants. But you spread lies, and your idiots believe them. 81% of Trump voters say disaster relief after Hurricane Helene was too slow. Well, it wasn't slow, but thanks to Donald Trump, JD Vance, and Elon Musk, it's slowing down. Rutherford County, North Carolina police say they arrested a 44-year-old man over the weekend who was threatening to stalk FEMA workers. This is what happens when Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and Speaker Mike Johnson convince low-information Trump voters that FEMA is either leaving them to die or invading deep red districts ravaged by the hurricane to steal their property. The Washington Post reported yesterday that FEMA ordered its workers to evacuate Rutherford County, North Carolina, for fear of armed militia attacks. The Wall Street Journal reported yesterday that in response to the lies about FEMA, white nationalist groups, including Patriot Front, announced they are performing search and rescue operations in Florida because that's who I want finding me, the people I'm hiding from. Patriot Front issued the following statement. We in Patriot Front are here to help out the local communities. Our politicians can hem and haw and switch over quickly to their talking points about Israel, but we truly are supporting our communities and being America first. If you're white, heterosexual, and Christian, not all members of the Patriot Front were helping search for victims in Florida. Lara Trump, who's co-chair of the RNC, announced a boat parade in Jupiter, Florida for Sunday. And some diehard Trump supporters brandishing Nazi flags and pro-Trump Make America Great signs got on their boats and joined the flotilla. Because this is what you do right after your state has just been ravaged by a storm.
Wow, look at this beautiful swastikas. There we go, white power. Hell, Trump. Yeah, make America white again. Woo, woo, woo. We're out here in Jupiter, loving it, loving the good weather, blue skies. Woo! Make America white. Let me see that sign, brother. Let me see that sign. There we go, man. My Pillow, 1488. Yay.
It's almost unbelievable. But according to the Anti-Defamation League, anti-Semitic incidents in the United States increased 50% during Donald Trump's first year in office. By the time he left office, they nearly doubled. This is the mop-up for October 15th, 2024. Please like this episode and help me out by sharing it. Join the morons who buy worthless crap over at shopdavidfeldman.com, like this worst-case scenario mug showing that all Kamala Harris needs to do is win the blue wall, and it gets her to 270. Besides being a terrific souvenir of the 2024 election, it's also a great way to calm yourself down, especially if you pour a little Jameson's in your coffee. Also, check out this. It's Donald Trump as a predator. Get a MAGA hat for your MAGA moron friend who can't read. On the back, it says low IQ individual, or you might want to pick up this mug. It's Donald Trump in Edvard Munch's The Scream, or pick up and I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea apron. My biggest seller, my only seller. I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea chef's apron. And check out my Halloween collection, including this 2029 inaugural ball souvenir of Donald Trump and Melania showing up for his, what would that be, his third inauguration? That's pretty scary. You got to order your Halloween gifts now. Otherwise, you got to pay for rush shipping. Okay. Campaigning in Prescott, Arizona on Sunday, Donald Trump promised the first thing he'd do when he gets back into the Oval Office is hire 10,000 additional border agents. What Trump conveniently left out is earlier this year, Trump killed a bipartisan border bill that would have hired 1,000 more agents all along the southern border. But he didn't want Biden to get any credit for solving the fictitious border crisis, so he ordered Republicans to let that bipartisan bill rot on the vine. CNN reported at the beginning of the month that border crossings are now down to their lowest levels since 2020. But the truth doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The Apprentice, a movie portraying Donald Trump, Trump's early years in real estate, where he came under the influence of mob attorney Roy Cohn, that movie only earned $1.6 million over the weekend. The movie cost $16 million to make and had a wide release. The movie, which features Trump sexually assaulting his first wife, has had mixed reviews, with some calling it a masterpiece. It stars Jeremy Strong from Succession. I see this as a leading indicator that Trump is going to lose. Even though it's a negative movie, we're bored with Trump. I mean, I'm going to go see this movie, but most of it, we know who Trump is. We're tired of who he is. We're bored with him. We want something new. Kamala Harris is something new. Americans always vote for something new. Kennedy was new. Carter was new. Reagan was new. Clinton was new. People vote for new. Trump is old and tired. He's not going to win. Last week, Donald Trump unveiled his new economic policy where he said he would replace the income tax with tariffs. Throughout the campaign, Trump has promised to make America rich by attaching 200% tariffs on all foreign-made goods. But during an interview on Fox News Sunday, Trump called his tariffs, quote, a figure of speech. And this is how many of his supporters justify voting for him. The New York Times had an interesting article yesterday, and they say that a lot of Trump's supporters maintain, oh, he doesn't mean the things he says. And in the latest New York Times Siena College poll, 41% of likely voters for Donald Trump agreed with the statement, quote, people who are offended by Donald Trump take his words too seriously, unquote. 41% of the people voting for Donald Trump say, don't listen to him. He doesn't mean anything he says. During the interview Sunday on Fox, Trump said, quote, I'm using 200% tariffs just as a figure of speech. You know, I'll say 100, 200, I'll say 500. I don't care, unquote. During his appearance on Fox News, Trump was reminded that American consumers, not the Chinese, will pay these tariffs. And Trump said, no, it's not. No. It's got to be passed on somehow. Meanwhile, The Economist is reporting this week that Russian leader Vladimir Putin's spy agency has turned feral in its attacks against the West. According to top intelligence officials in the West, Putin is engaging in sabotage, including attacks on America's water systems, assassinations, and using the internet to undermine Western democracies. The Economist quotes Avril Haines, America's director of national intelligence, who labeled Russia, quote, the most active foreign threat to our elections above China or Iran. Yes, it's a golden age for disinformation, and Putin is filling the void. He's filling the void left by our decaying fourth estate. Fake news is replacing real news in America. According to Gallup, America's trust in the news media is now at a record low, so they're more susceptible to Donald Trump's lies and Vladimir Putin's disinformation. According to a new poll from Gallup, 36% of all Americans have zero trust in our news media. As you can imagine, the problem is greater among Trump supporters. Gallup says while 54% of Democrats say they trust the news media, only 12% of Republicans say they trust the news media. Think about that. 12% of Republicans trust CNN, the Washington Post, The Economist, the New York Times, all the traditional news sources that form the building blocks of a well-informed democracy. Now, I'm not saying mainstream media doesn't get it wrong. I'm not, and I know it's in the job of propping up our economic system as well as the military-industrial complex. Mainstream media has never seen a war it didn't like. But buried underneath all that is the truth. You just have to possess a modicum of critical thinking and know how to suss the truth out. Noam Chomsky famously said there are hundreds of headlines buried deep inside the New York Times. Legitimate news organizations often suppress the really important news by burying it deep within their pages or deep within the story. But it's there. It's there. So where do Trump supporters get their news? Trump is where they get their news. Trump. According to a new CBS YouGov poll, 65% of Trump supporters say Trump is who they trust most to tell them the truth, along with their friends and family. They're tied with Trump. 65% of Trump supporters say they trust Trump and their friends and family to tell them the truth. 51% of Trump supporters say they get their truth from conservative media figures, and 44% say they get it from their religious leaders. So, what about facts? Indisputable facts. What about them? On Monday, the S&P 500 and the Dow hit record highs at the sound of the closing bell. This is a fact. The total return for the S&P 500 so far this year is 23.25%. That means if you invested $100 in the stock market in the S&P 500 on January 1st, you would have right now $123.25. That's a pretty good return. I don't know about the stock market, but I do know that's a good return. 16% of Trump voters say the stock market is lower this year. It's up 23.25%, but according to a new CBS YouGov poll, on a fact, 16% of Trump voters say the stock market is lower this year. 48% of Trump voters say the stock market is about the same or they're not sure. 36% of Trump supporters say it's higher. 36% of Trump supporters got it right on a fact. I find this interesting because we are now polling people on facts. 50% of Harris voters got it right and said the stock market is higher. 7% of Harris supporters, as opposed to 16% of Trump supporters, got it wrong and said the stock market is lower. 43% of Harris supporters said the stock market is about the same or they don't know. Well, I find this interesting, but it's flawed polling. What CBS YouGov really needs to do is tease out those who think the stock market is the same, tease that out from those who are willing to admit they don't know. I find it, I'd love to know when polling on a fact, what percentage of Americans will just say, I don't know.
I have gone through the roof with black men. Black men. I don't do quite as well with black women, I must say. I don't know why, but I'm sure that'll work out too.
Just a lie. Through the roof with black men. What does that mean? It means in 2020, 5% of black men were voting for Trump. Now 5.1% are voting for him. It's just a lie. From the CBS YouGov poll out this morning, in 2020, 12% of black voters went with Trump. According to the latest polling, 12% of black voters are going with Trump in 2024. 87% of black people went with Biden in 2020. In 2024, 87% are going with Harris. All year, we kept hearing how Trump is winning over the black voter. But we hear it from racists like Donald Trump, who says, black voters through the roof. And I've heard people on Fox News, racists, insist that black people are falling in love with Trump. Why? Because he's been arrested. They say he's a convicted felon. Black people can relate to him. I've actually heard that on Fox News countless times. Some douchebag told Laura Ingraham on Fox News right when Trump began selling gold sneakers, he was going to win over all the black voters because black people love sneakers. It's been a tradition. Every 4 years, the presidential and vice presidential candidates from each party release their tax returns. Politico reports that both Trump and JD Vance have yet to release their tax returns, and they're not going to. What's even more interesting, according to Politico, is how acclimated we've become to Trump not releasing his tax returns. Back in 2016, the first time he went and released them, it was scandalous. What is he hiding? Now it's no longer an issue. Some political scientists interviewed by Politico are marveling at how Trump has rewritten the rules for what is considered acceptable behavior by a candidate. Yes, isn't it? He's rewritten the rules. How about he just isn't obeying the rules? How about he's a criminal? The state of the race, as I said at the top of the show, it's tight. Nate Cohen over at the New York Times, who studies polling, now calls this the tightest race he's ever seen. Honestly, I don't know. All I know is she's going to win the popular vote and the blue wall. From my understanding, what I've been reading, most of these polls are weighted heavily now to favor Donald Trump. There's a methodology being employed by many A-plus pollsters, in which they insist on a sampling of voters who cast their ballot for Trump in 2020. In other words, at least 50% of all those questioned had to have voted for Trump in 2020. Now, this methodology was discredited before Trump even arrived on the scene. The problem is, believe it or not, a lot of voters, I know this is hard to believe, can't remember who they voted for in 2020. I know. But that's what's wrong with this methodology. And but they've gone back to sampling at least a 50% pool of people who voted for Trump in 2020 because they underestimated the number of votes Trump got, obviously, in 2016, and they did underestimate the number of votes that Trump got in 2020. So this time, they're going out of their way to include a large sample of voters who cast their ballot for Donald Trump in 2020. To put it more simply, these polls may be leaning too hard in favor of Trump, and this race may not be as close as these A-plus pollsters are claiming. Again, not all the pollsters are insisting on using this methodology, the large sample of previous Trump voters. So a little later on, I'll show you the polling averages. A new CBS YouGov poll shows Harris leading Trump by 3 in the national polling averages. No, I'm sorry, not in the national polling average. This is a CBS poll. It's not the national averages. She is leading Donald Trump by 3, according to CBS YouGov. And in the battleground states, she's showing a 1% lead. But what do they mean by a battleground state? There are 7, possibly 8. But you know the drill. All that matters is Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Right? She wins the blue wall, she gets to 270. Now, if she can't win Pennsylvania's 19 electoral votes, she needs to pick up either North Carolina's 16 electoral votes, or she needs to pick up Georgia's 16 electoral votes, but she's 3 shy of Pennsylvania's 19, so that means she either has to win Arizona or Nevada or Georgia. But as I said, always check the polling averages. The national polling averages, that's an average of all the A-plus pollsters. The national polling averages are showing this morning, or last night. They showed last night. I don't have this morning's averages. It changes every day. But as of last night, the national polling averages are showing the national race tightening, with Harris now leading Trump by just 2 percentage points. Okay, what does that mean? Nothing. You might remember I reported on October 1st that Harris was leading Trump by 4 percentage points in the national averages. Now it's down to 2. So, does that mean the race is tightening? No, I don't believe so. I do remember saying the race would be over by October 1st. You might, if you're a long-time listener, at least if you've been listening to me for 3 months, I told you the race would be over by October 1st. I remember telling you that because of early voting, because there won't be any more debates, I said there's a good chance that the polling we see on October 1st is what we're going to see on Election Day. I also remember back in the summer before the Democratic Convention telling you that we will see on Election Day a reversion to the polling we see on Labor Day. Possibly October 1st, but I said Labor Day is your first blush, and after all is said and done, voters trust their first blush. So, what do I think? I've always said this was going to look like a tight race. I've always said that in the 24 hours before Election Day, internal polling in both camps will reveal that Harris has cracked the electoral map wide open. I believe that now as much, if not more, than I believed it 2 months ago when I said that. Am I worried? Of course, because I love what's left of my country. And I believe this new polling methodology that some of these pollsters are using is too weighted in Trump's favor. I think the polling units, the pollsters who insist on a sampling of voters that accurately reflects the percentage of votes Donald Trump got in 2020, skews the results in his favor. I also think, most importantly, the fundamentals favor Harris. And the two most important fundamentals are the economy and the lack of enthusiasm for Trump inside the GOP. And even more importantly, in the national polling averages, Trump's ceiling is stuck at 47%. Harris's ceiling is 50%. Now, she's off her highs. And this morning, what we're seeing, not this morning, I'm waiting for this morning's to come in. But yesterday, with the 2 percentage differential in the national averages, we don't see Trump gaining steam. He hits his ceiling and he's stuck at 47%. It tightens because Harris comes off her highs. She comes down. And because these polls are measured every day, a 2 to 3 to 4%. These are statistical glitches. What you have to remember is consistency, and Kamala Harris has been in the lead nationally since August 1st, and she's never let go of the lead. So these numbers go up and down, but what remains constant in the national polling averages is Kamala Harris has always been beating Donald Trump since August 1st. Okay, I'm looking at, it came in finally. The early averages, good. This is good. Doesn't mean anything, but it's good. The early, the averages for October 15th, I was giving you the national averages for October 14th. Kamala Harris has now extended her national lead in the polling averages to 3 points. So that just came. So the lead averaged 2 points yesterday. Now it's back up to 3 points. This is Trump's national campaign spokesman, Stephen Chung. No, I know he's a dead ringer for a young Ashton Kutcher, right? If you're not looking carefully, you think, is that Ashton Kutcher from that 70s show? No, it's Stephen Chung, Trump's national campaign spokesman. Stephen Chung, Trump's campaign manager, disagrees with me. He doesn't think Kamala Harris is a closer. He says she's going to run out of steam. Chung said yesterday, quote, Kamala Harris is unable to keep up with the demands of campaigning and reveals on a daily basis she is wholly unqualified to be president of the United States. Her schedule is much lighter than Donald Trump's because she does not have the stamina. Yes, the stamina. Stephen Chung says it's all about stamina. And you know what they say about Stephen Chung's stamina? This man can go all night. He can go all night trying to climb one flight of stairs. The man never gives up. 10 hours, 12 hours, it doesn't matter how long it takes him to climb that one flight of stairs. Stephen Chung is going to make it because he has stamina. Speaking of stamina, Donald Trump at a rally last night gave up in the middle of the rally and just played music for 30 minutes. I don't know where it was, but he just said, cue the music, and he turned his rally into a dance party for 30 minutes. I was going to play it, but I'll get dinged because you can't play, it's not royalty-free music, but it's all his favorite songs. He's just given up. Let's just have fun. And Stephen Chung tweeted out, something very special is happening at Donald Trump's rally tonight. Something we've never seen before. Yeah, he's either had a stroke or he's just given up, and he's just all in on the steal. It's just, let's just have some fun and dance, and then I'll try to steal this. Well, let's look at the blue wall, shall we? Yes, we shall. The polling averages now show in the blue wall Kamala Harris leading by less than 1 point in Michigan and Wisconsin and a full point in Pennsylvania. Now, that's the way it's been in Pennsylvania since August 11th. She's been leading Trump by 1 point for 2 months. He has never had the lead since she became the presumptive nominee in Pennsylvania. And this is important because as Trump consistently leads slightly in Georgia, Arizona, and North Carolina, and sometimes in Nevada, the same way Harris has consistently led the blue wall, this race is exceedingly coming down to Pennsylvania. Again, I think 24 hours before November 5th, we're going to see it breaking open where she's winning Georgia and North Carolina and Arizona. I definitely think she wins North Carolina. But as I've warned, Pennsylvania, North Carolina's 16 electoral votes aren't enough to replace Pennsylvania's 19. She's going to need to pick up more than North Carolina or more than Georgia. She needs to pick up both North Carolina and Georgia, or one of those plus Nevada or Arizona. I can't pretend, I know she's going to win, but I can't pretend that she's not bogged down in Pennsylvania. With 20 days left, I was hoping to see her opening the map and heading down to Florida. It's not happening. CNN reported yesterday that Harris has spent $312 million on advertising in Pennsylvania, more than any other state. This is where the final battle is. Trump has completely outsourced his ground game primarily to Elon Musk, who has reportedly spent $100 million so far on Trump's Get Out the Vote campaign. It used to be the evangelicals. He alienated them. Now it's Elon Musk. The Guardian reports that a new app that Musk is using to incentivize Trump workers to knock on doors, that new app has completely crashed, with Trump workers not being able to access the addresses they're supposed to go to. And because the app is down, they can't get paid, since without the app, it's impossible to verify where they've gone. In a swing state, a good ground game is the difference between 1 and 2 points. Musk had a very successful SpaceX launch over the weekend. It was really impressive. I hate to admit it. He was able to launch a spaceship and then have a still-burning booster engine return to Earth and land with pinpoint accuracy. So Maybe he reinvented the ground game, but I suspect Trump's ground game through Elon Musk is going to end up looking more like Twitter than SpaceX. The app is crashing, and you have Trump volunteers and Trump workers knocking on doors, not in the city, in rural areas. That requires a lot of work for people whose feet hurt. Trump, if you're voting for Trump, I'm going to be polite and just say they have sore feet. So I don't think they're knocking on that many doors. This race comes down to I love this story. This race comes down to Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania comes down to Erie, Pennsylvania. Erie is the bellwether city. It's been said whoever wins Erie, Pennsylvania, wins the presidency in 2024. So, of course, Donald Trump has alienated the entire city of Erie. According to new reporting, Trump owes the city of Erie, Pennsylvania, $40,330 in public safety costs for a rally dating back to 2018. Erie keeps sending Trump bills, and hard to believe, he stiffs them. So one would think, wouldn't one? When you read about Donald Trump stiffing the city of Erie, Pennsylvania, one would think voters would think, right? Even worse, Trump owes the city of El Paso, Texas, $569,200 for a 2019 rally. They've had to hire a lawyer. El Paso, Texas, had to hire a lawyer to collect $569,200, but he's still stiffing them. One would think, wouldn't one? One would think. Let's go back to Pennsylvania. Republican Congressman Scott Perry is a former head of the Freedom Caucus and was instrumental in not only organizing the January 6th Stop the Steal rally, he was also responsible personally for Donald Trump deciding to elevate a low-level Justice Department official named Jeffrey Clark to acting Attorney General in the lead up to the insurrection. I've talked about Jeffrey Clark. Donald Trump couldn't find anybody in the government willing to say there was evidence of voter fraud, and Congressman Scott Perry from Pennsylvania met with Trump in December and said, I got a guy. There's a guy, he's in the Justice Department. His name is Jeffrey Clark. He'll say there's voter fraud. And some say Trump actually appointed Jeffrey Clark acting Attorney General. Some say the order was ignored when the entire Justice Department threatened to quit if Jeffrey Clark became the acting Attorney General. Nobody's quite sure whether or not Jeffrey Clark was acting Attorney General for a few hours. Congressman Scott Perry's phone was seized by the FBI, and Special Counsel Jack Smith has been keeping an eye on Congressman Scott Perry, but it's hard to indict a sitting congressman. It's hard to indict a sitting senator. On the last show, I talked about how the Fulton County grand jury told Fani Willis to indict Senator Lindsey Graham, but she demurred because it's hard to indict a sitting congressman or senator. But with Scott Perry, new polling shows it looks like Scott Perry is about to lose his seat. And he will be in Special Counsel Jack Smith's, I'm not going to say crosshairs, can't say that anymore. But after Trump loses, you can be pretty certain that Jack Smith is going to be coming for Scott Perry. Susquehanna Polling's latest shows Democrat Janelle Stelson a former area anchorwoman, is now leading Scott Perry 48% to 39%. And there is your ground game. There is your bellwether in Pennsylvania. When Scott Perry is losing, Kamala Harris is winning in Pennsylvania. That is the imperceptible momentum below the surface. So, like I said, Harris is holding her lead in the blue wall, and it has been a consistent, tight lead since early August. There is momentum. I'm just going to bring up momentum because it's due diligence, but this isn't important. When you look at momentum during the past 2 weeks, there's no question that parts of the blue wall have been tightening slightly in Trump's favor in terms of momentum. Momentum is important, sort of. And in the past 2 weeks, the polling averages in the blue wall are moving slightly towards Trump in Wisconsin and Michigan by a few tenths of a percentage point. Again, Harris is still leading in Wisconsin. She is still leading in Michigan. But over the past 2 weeks, Trump's momentum, Trump has been closing that lead by a few tenths of a percentage point. Is this significant? Due diligence says yes. The blue wall will come down to anywhere between 150,000 to 200,000 votes spread out among Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. These states might be decided by a few tenths of a percentage point. Momentum is something to keep an eye on. I'm not giving you any warning signs. This isn't, and I'm not even saying it's tightening, because I don't think these polls right now are picking up the imperceptible momentum, the tremendous number of female Trump voters who now say they're voting for Harris, as well as the people who say they're voting for Trump but are going to stay home. But if you're paying attention to momentum, if you're going to follow this stuff, the good news is in the past 2 weeks, the polling averages are moving slightly towards Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania. Kamala Harris is stronger in Pennsylvania today than she was on October 1st. Probably gobbledygook, what I just went over with you. It's momentum is a factor in these races, but it's nothing to worry about. What upsets me is Harris is still not strong enough in Pennsylvania. Harris campaigned in Pennsylvania yesterday. She is bogged down inside the blue wall, unable to open up the map. Yes, she's made trips to Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, but these numbers in the blue wall are too tight for her to reallocate resources and bring the fight to Florida, which would open up the map. I was hoping we'd see her in Florida by now. You might remember I kept saying, if we see her winning those polls, if her cracking open a big lead in Pennsylvania, she goes to Florida. She's not going to Florida. So, a little disappointing. Former Wyoming Republican Liz Cheney warned on Sunday that Speaker Mike Johnson will not vote to certify the election for Kamala Harris. Cheney said she was there in 2020 when Johnson was told by the House Republican Counsel that there was absolutely no evidence of voter fraud. Cheney remains to this day infuriated that despite being told Biden won fair and square, Johnson went ahead putting his name to a 2020 amicus brief in support of the Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who was challenging election results in key swing states. The Supreme Court, to its credit, refused to take this case. Speaker Johnson has repeatedly said that he would vote to certify for Harris only if he believes the election is free, fair, and safe. But he is already warning that illegals are voting for Harris. Here he is on Meet the Press Sunday.
Listen, Democrats have objected to slates of electors in every single election this century when a Republican president has won. Every single time.
Okay, and I think I altered his face. Well, let me respond to that. PolitiFact reports that congressional Democrats, he's right, objected to certification on January 6 in 2001, 2005, and 2017, but their candidate had already conceded and no senator signed on. More from Johnson on Sunday.
No, the point is the process works. We have the peaceful transfer of power. We did in 2020. We will in 2024.
Yes, we had a totally peaceful transfer of power. Just ask the 140 Capitol Police officers who were taken to the hospital on January 6 and the 5 or 6 who ended up dying. A new CBS YouGov poll asks, after the votes are counted, what should your candidate do? 72% of Harris voters say accept the results no matter who wins. 50% of Trump supporters say accept the results no matter who wins. I'm surprised that it's 50% among Trump voters. I thought it would have been much lower. Axios is now reporting that Congressman Jamie Raskin, Democrat, says he can't guarantee he would vote to certify for Trump on January 6. Raskin says we know he's going to try to steal it. In 2017, I'm going to go over this because I come down pretty hard on Speaker Mike Johnson. He made a statement that Democrats have challenged the certification in every election since, 2001. And that is true, but it's a little different. So let me go over what happened in 2017. Jamie Raskin, Democrat, objected to 10 of Florida's 29 electors, but he failed to get a senator to sign on. The way Republican poll Gosar in 2020 got Senator Ted Cruz to sign on before the insurrectionists broke into the Capitol. You'll see Democrats object, but in order to slow the process down, you need a senator to sign on to the objection. And there's never been a U.S. senator, a Democratic senator, who signed on to a congressperson objecting. And had the insurrectionists not broken into the Capitol on January 6, 2020, the Green Bay sweep would have been this concerted effort of congressmen, congresswomen, and senators working together to delay the certification. Josh Hawley, senator. There were other senators who would have assisted in the objections. This never happened when the Democrats objected. Now, in 2017, January 6, 2017, then Vice President Joe Biden presided over the 2017 certification for Trump, and he had to put up with 11 objections from congressional Democrats. Jamie Raskin objected. Congressman Jim McGovern of Massachusetts objected to Alabama's slate of electors, citing Russian interference. Then Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal of Washington objected to Georgia's certification. Vice President Joe Biden, presiding over the certification, told her, quote, "It's over." Then Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Democrat from California, objected to Michigan's certification, citing possible Russian hacking of machines. Before her mic got turned off, she said, "People are horrified by the overwhelming evidence of Russian interference in our election." Texas Democrat Sheila Jackson Lee joined her and objected, citing voter suppression. We lost Texas Democrat Sheila Jackson Lee this year. Vice President Joe Biden snapped, "The debate is not in order. It's over." Then Raul Grijalva, the Democrat from Arizona, objected to North Carolina's electoral slate, citing violations of the Voting Rights Act. Biden again said, be seated. Texas Democrat Sheila Jackson Lee immediately stood up to challenge North Carolina as well. Vice President Joe Biden warned, quote, there is no debate, there is no debate, there is no debate. We miss Texas Democrat Sheila Jackson Lee. Congresswoman Barbara Lee of California had her mic cut off as she objected to West Virginia. Texas Democrat Sheila Jackson tried to challenge Wisconsin, citing Russian interference. Vice President Joe Biden said the objection cannot be received. Maxine Waters, Democratic Congresswoman from California, was met with boos as she said, I wish to ask, is there one United States senator who will join me in the letter of objection? And not one single senator joined any of the Democratic Congress people, unlike Ted Cruz in 2020, who joined Paul Gosar. And as I keep telling you about the Green Bay sweep, had the MAGA morons not stormed the Capitol, other senators would have joined in the objections. As Biden officially certified the 2016 presidential election for Donald Trump, one protester was removed from the gallery. Mike Johnson can say Democrats have always objected when a Republican was elected president. Maybe so, but it's the difference between a misdemeanor and murder. These Democrats were absolutely well within their right to challenge. It was a peaceful protest. Well, I have to warn you, you may want to skip ahead 3 minutes on this story. How am I doing on time? Okay. In early 2024, Wayne LaPierre was forced to step down as head of the National Rifle Association after the pig was found guilty of stealing millions from the National Rifle Association. The Guardian is reporting that Doug Hamlin, the new head of the National Rifle Association, pled no contest to animal cruelty back in 1980. I'm not talking about hunting. I'm talking about torture. This is what serial killers do. And again, you may want to skip ahead 3 minutes. He fits the profile of Jeffrey Dahmer. According to The Guardian, Hamlin led a fraternity in 1979 that tortured their house cat for not using the box. The cat's paws were cut off, then the cat was strung upside down and set on fire. This is who these people are. This is who they are. Hamlin was an undergrad at University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, when he was sentenced to 200 hours of animal-related community service. The judge called the crime, quote, unconscionable and heinous, accusing Hamlin and his fraternity brothers of engaging in a cover-up. These people have always been with us. They've never been so omnipresent and reaching so high into the corridors of power. But this is who these people are. Israel at war, year 2. We're now in year 2 of the war. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denied Israel targeted 5 UN peacekeepers who were injured in southern Lebanon. Iran's foreign minister condemned Israel's attack on a refugee camp inside northern Gaza that killed 10, injured 40. On Monday, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned Israel's large number of civilians killed in northern Gaza. Lebanon reports 51 killed by Israeli airstrikes on Sunday. The Gaza Health Ministry reports 62 dead. A Hezbollah drone strike killed 4, injured 58 in an attack on a northern Israeli military base. Israel's defense minister warned the response to Hezbollah's drone strike that killed 4 will be forceful. Israel Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu added, quote, Israel will continue to strike Hezbollah without mercy everywhere in Lebanon, including Beirut. Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, said he's looking into why his air defense systems failed to knock the drones out of the sky before they landed on that military base, leaving 4 dead. Israel says it did succeed in shooting down 2 drones launched yesterday from Syria. On Monday, Israel targeted northern Lebanon for the first time since fighting broke out a year ago. 21 were killed in this attack on the northern town of Aito, a majority Maronite Christian city. Israel says more than 100 rockets were fired into Israel by Hezbollah on Monday. Israel says it uncovered a massive underground Hezbollah command center containing missiles and motorbikes designed to launch a ground assault similar to the one launched by Hamas a year ago. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Please share this episode with your friends. Please hit the like button so I remain in your feed. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room, keeping the conversation civil. I read all your comments. Please go to shopdavidfeldman.com and pick up a worst-case scenario map. What else? The Donald Trump Predator mug, a MAGA hat for your MAGA moron friend who can't read. It says on the back, see that low IQ individual? He won't notice. I love this, the coffee mug of Donald Trump in Edvard Munch's The Scream. Or pick up, and I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea, Chef's Apron, and check out my Halloween collection featuring this 2029 inaugural ball souvenir of Donald Trump and Melania at their ball. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to try to do a show tomorrow. Get to work, please, for the Democratic Party. I hope to see everybody at Tooth Hurdy tomorrow morning. I'm going to try. Thank you so much.